process for this community. We invoke your presence in tonight's debate, that it may prove to be helpful in informing us about those who seek to serve as Mayor President of East Baton Rouge Parish. We honor the decision that each candidate has made to offer themselves in public service, and we ask your blessings upon them individually and our city parish collectively. We thank you for those who are participating in this process via live stream. Give us eyes to see, ears to hear, hearts to feel, and minds to discern, so that we may make the most informed decision possible with our vote, decisions that will produce a better, more equitable, more unified community. Let us spend this time in the wisest manner possible. We ask this in your name. Amen. Good evening. I'm Fred Jeff Smith, pastor of Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church and one of the members of Prophetic Voices, a coalition of concerned clergy, intent on helping to inform and empower the citizens of East Baton Rouge Parish. To that end, we have organized this mayoral debate. This dialogue is being viewed via live stream on Vimeo, our Shiloh Facebook and YouTube pages, and it is being shared to our Prophetic Voices Facebook page. Our purpose is to raise awareness of the positions held by these candidates for public office and the agenda they will pursue should they be tasked to serve. Equally important, we want the candidates to hear from the community what are our concerns and expectations. Thus, we invite you to send us your questions using the chat mechanism that is available to you. Each announced candidate was contacted and invited to participate in this forum, and we're grateful for those who have accepted our invitation. We're also thankful to Terrence Turner, who heads our audio-video ministry and has produced this event, to Kenyatta Collins and Tony King, who will moderate this forum, to the staff of Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church, and to the many volunteers who have stepped up and helped us in facilitating this forum. Without your contribution, this activity would not be possible. It is important to note that Prophetic Voices is not supported by or beholden to any political party or any other civic or private group, financially or in any other way. We are clergy who have come together to collectively make our voices heard on those matters that affect our community and that we believe can make a positive contribution. It is a vital part of our ministry to facilitate intelligent and specific dialogue that may be used to better inform them of the issues that your candidacy seeks to address. We represent several churches and several thousands of voters spread throughout East Baton Rouge Parish. Tomorrow, October 20th at 6:30 p.m., we will be hosting the second of our Zoom voter forums, focusing on the various judgeship races that are taking place in our parish. The following Tuesday, October 27th, also at 6:30 p.m., we will focus on the proposed amendments to our state constitution, as well as the presidential, Senate, congressional, and mayoral races. For information on how you may participate in those forums, please go to the Prophetic Voices Facebook page. Again, we welcome you to this debate, and we turn you over to the hands of our moderators, Kenyatta Collins and Tony King.
Welcome to the Prophetic Voices 2020 Mayoral Candidate Forum. I'm one half of your moderator team. I am Tony King.
Good evening, and again, I want to welcome you to tonight's forum. I'm Kenyatta M. Collins, host of Connections with Kenyatta Collins, and I'm very happy to be here. Tonight's forum will consist of 5 categories: economic development, law and order, faith and governing, COVID-19, and live stream audience questions.
Tonight, we will operate from a round-robin format. Each candidate will receive 2 minutes to answer questions, and if that candidate or their policy is referenced by another candidate, that candidate may have 1 minute and 30 seconds worth of rebuttal. If again, the featured candidate is referred to in that rebuttal, that candidate is allowed an additional 30 seconds to respond. This format, as stated earlier, is broadcast through Shiloh Baptist Church's missionary live stream channel, as well as Vimeo, as well as Facebook, and the Prophetic Voices and Shiloh Church BR. With that being said, we would like to welcome our esteemed guest. We have tonight E. Eric Gayrard, C. Denise Marcel, State Representative, current Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome, and Jordan Piazza. If you notice, we do have 2 additional chairs with the names attached for additional candidates. We have extended an opportunity for all candidates to participate this evening. We thank those who have come, and we still have an open welcome for those that were offered and could not make it, an opportunity to respond and participate via this forum. With that being said, each candidate will receive 2 minutes worth of an opening statement. We would like to start with candidate E. Eric Gayrard.
If you think you are beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you like to win, but you think you can, it's almost a cinch. You don't. If you think you'll lose, you've lost. So how in the world will you find? Success begins with a person's will. It's all in the state of mind. If you think you're outclassed, you are. You've got to think high to rise. You've got to be sure of yourself before you can ever win the prize. Think big and your deeds will grow. Think small and you'll fall behind. Think that you can and you will. It's all in the state of mind. For life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man. But sooner or later, the person who wins is the person who thinks he can. My name's E. Eric Gayrard, and I'm running for Mayor President of Baton Rouge. And from that poem, you can tell I think that it's a long shot for me. I will admit that. But longer shots have won in history. The Americans beat the Soviets in hockey. I'm a big fan of Dale Brown, and he preaches optimism, positive thinking, and doing the unthinkable. So I want to attract everyone to my campaign. I call it Fuse the Rouge. I want to fuse the parish, and I want to do things that are a little different. I want to think out of the box, and I want to reach big. And we're going to go through education, crime, business development, traffic, and what I call community relations and quality of life. And so go to my website, fusetherouge.org, and you'll see a lot of those details. And we'll go to details here tonight also. But remember this. We are mired in the muck of mediocrity in Baton Rouge, and it's time for us to reach out and take a new level as a city. And I'm the leader, I think, that can do that. So please join with me, because remember, Baton Rouge has a lot of problems that need to be cleaned up, and this broom don't sweep.
Next, we will have State Representative C. Denise Marcel.
Good evening. I am C. Denise Marcel, and I'm a state representative, and I'm seeking the office of Mayor President. First and foremost, I would like to thank Shiloh Baptist Church for hosting this event and for the other organizations for joining in with them in order to allow the citizens to see the candidates and hear from us. I am a leader in this city. I decided to run for Mayor President because I've shown my leadership on the Metro Council level. I've shown that leadership by standing up in front of issues that we face, whether it was the Alton Sterling killing or whether it was the body cameras that I brought to the forefront. I've stood up and I've led this city. I've led this city through tumultuous times, and I believe that I've shown that excellence in everything that I do. And currently, I'm serving in the House of Representatives, where I also have shown leadership. I found that there was issues with driver's license being suspended. And not only were there issues with it being suspended, everyone had to pay the entire fee in order to get their driver's license back. Why is that so important? Because people could not get back to work. If you don't have a license, it's almost nothing that you can do in this city or state. I stood up and I fought for the people all over the state of Louisiana, and I returned them with a payment plan that had never been put into place on my first year elected as state representative. I intend to lead this city through the flood issues, through the crime issues, and through the infrastructure issues. I'm C. Denise Marcel. I'm number 90 on your ballot.
And at this time, we will have Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome.
Thank you, and good evening to everyone, and thanks to Shiloh Baptist Church for hosting this event tonight. When I took office, when you elected me as your mayor president in 2016, and I took office in 2017, we started on a transformational path for city parish government. As you well know, 2016 was plagued with trauma for our city and for our parish. And so immediately I went to work to address those issues. I started by working to close the gap with the police officers in our community, police reform. We started with many of the initiatives that are now being talked about nationally: de-escalation, use of force policies, and many more, always staying on a path of 21st century policing as our vision and as our goal. From there, I went to address the issues surrounding traffic with our historic Move VBR program, which not only addresses roads, infrastructure, but also traffic mitigation. And of course, another traumatic event of 2016 that occurred was the Great Flood. And so with the first stormwater master plan that we have now executed, we are on a pathway of finding out strategically how do we address our drainage issues. That coupled with $255 million that I worked to secure with our federal and state partners to address the 5 tributary projects that will have a tremendous impact on our city and parish. We still have work to do. Do we have challenges surrounding public safety and other areas? Yes, we do, but I will tell you, the transparent and transformative leadership we have executed has set us up for success in the future.
Thank you. And at this time, Jordan Piazza.
Good evening, and thank you all for having me, and for those folks at home that are watching. It's COVID has presented its challenge to get in front of people, so we're all most grateful for y'all providing that opportunity. I'm born and raised here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I'm very proud of that fact, because I believe to succeed here, you have to be from here to truly understand our unique culture. My family owned and operated Phil's Oyster Bar and Seafood Restaurant, for those that don't know, which was on Government Street for over 50 years. And my brother and I reopened that restaurant in 2016 on Perkins Road before I sold out to him earlier this year. And I purchased Uncle Earl's Bar on Perkins Road with some friends. And so we revitalized that bar, and that's now my main project. But I decided to run for mayor president because I've noticed that, I graduated with a small class of 100 folks from University High School here in Baton Rouge, and 80 out of those 100 no longer live here. And to me, that's a problem. And I started to think they were crazy. And because I've had opportunities when I worked for Todd Graves at Raising Cane's as his business manager and traveled the world, I had opportunities to move to Dallas and get a permanent job, but I refused because I wanted to be in Baton Rouge, where my family was, where I was born, and a place I knew that had so much potential. And so when I started to take a look at it, I realized that maybe my friends weren't crazy, maybe I was crazy for staying. because we rank 20th in the nation in budget per capita, but 138th in quality of services. And so I believe that public safety is also an issue. We've had over 100 homicides this year. At the same time last year, we were at, I believe, 67, the coroner said. So we've got some real issues with public safety that can't all be blamed on a pandemic. We have to look at the criminals and really address this issue. But my biggest concern is that we've had, administration and our taxpayers have put together, over the last 4 years, almost $4 billion, which is a lot of money. And I believe that it can be better managed. And I believe that we don't need to increase taxes or propose new taxes in order to get things accomplished. I think Baton Rouge has much potential, and I believe my experience in working in different roles and opening businesses and being successful in doing such provides me a unique position, and I look forward to that opportunity.
Thank you. Again, we have offered the opportunity for everyone to be here. All of our candidates that are here, we are grateful. As you can see, we do have 2 candidates that are absent, but the platform is still available for them. At this time, we will begin our debate with the first segment, economic development.
The first question is for E. Eric Gayrard. East Baton Rouge Parish is a tale of 2 cities. There is both economic investment for downtown Baton Rouge and the southern end of the parish, leaving many in North Baton Rouge feeling left behind. What steps or plans do you have to encourage investment in all of the East Baton Rouge Parish, seeing as though we are all one parish?
I would totally agree with that. That's why my campaign is called Fuse the Rouge, because I do want to bring the parish together. And I believe in the concept of in the movie The Field of Dreams, build it and they will come. We have to have a foundation before you can build a big building. So for North Baton Rouge and the whole parish, education is where it starts. It's everything we do, every problem we have, everything we can build comes from the tentacles of education. And until you get that right, for all the citizens of Baton Rouge, it's never going to be a situation where we can build and have economic development, because businesses will not want to come here if you have a low class and a bottom of the barrel educational system. Today in the paper, the ACT scores, it was a story about in the editorial section. Half of our people taking the ACT don't even get an 18. My son, when he was in 7th grade, got in the low 20s. It is embarrassing what we are developed in this parish as far as education. So my idea is called fund it, don't run it. I want government to get out of the business of running education and just fund education. It would totally privatize the situation. We would bring the weight of the economic strength of capitalism to East Baton Rouge Parish. We would see things occur in this parish that nowhere else in the country is seeing. We would have an educational wonderstorm descend upon Baton Rouge. There would be schools and school operations and school businesses and spin-off businesses that would occur that people cannot even imagine now. So to me, it springs from that education thing. And there's other things you can do, but until you get that right, until you have a workforce and a educated citizenry that can go into through this next century, then we can't take the next step for economic development. So my idea is called fund it, don't run it. That is the new educational system.
State Representative Marcel.
Same question.
Yes, ma'am.
So for the infrastructure, when you talk about North Baton Rouge versus South Baton Rouge, I think there's the inequities that we have not invested in North Baton Rouge. You first have to be willing to invest in North Baton Rouge. One of the challenges that we face is certainly the crime that happens in North Baton Rouge. It's hard to attract developers to an area where the crime is high. So we've got to work on that. You can't talk about infrastructure and changing how that side of town looks versus the other side without talking about the issues that they face. And certainly that's poverty and mental health issues and so many other issues. I believe that we can do that by finding the niche for Baton Rouge. We've got to be like in Austin, Texas. We've got to figure out, we have Southern University and LSU, we have great resources. We have to use them. We have to use those in order to figure out how do we build up one side of town where it's been torn down. And there are many things that we could do innovatively, like taking blighted buildings and turning them into something positive, such as the 1701 Main Street, where the Council on Aging is about to open up. It was a blighted bank building. But we found that when I was on the Metro Council. William Daniels and I worked to clear the title to it. You've got to do it. It's not going to happen overnight. And I know that we did that, and we did some with the fire stations, but we've got to be intentional when we talk about the infrastructure issues that we face and the lack of development in North Baton Rouge versus South Baton Rouge. And you got to put your money where your mouth is, and particularly enacting the DBE that I also passed on the Metro Council.
Thank you. Mayor Broom?
Well, you heard me say at the very beginning that when I took this office, assumed this role, that we started a path of transformational leadership. And first and foremost, when I ran, one of the common themes that I heard from a number of people across the parish was the lack of investment or the disinvestment in North Baton Rouge. So that became a top priority for me and my team. And so what did we do? We started building public-private partnerships to address those issues. As a result, one of the primary projects that resulted from the public-private partnership was the redevelopment of a 15-year vacant building, Howell Place, which is now going to be a complex for Oceans Healthcare, a mental health facility, for Oshner Primary Care, and it's going to provide over 100 jobs. And as we know, economic growth and development attracts economic growth and development. I will tell you what else we have done. We have partnered and worked with many of the young developers. I am so encouraged about people and young developers who live in the area who are now reaching out to me and saying, Mayor, we want to help reinvest in the communities that we grew up in. And I have been working with them around their visions and their goals. Secondly, I will also say that, as you know, we have the Plank Road Corridor project that we started. That is going to be transformative for North Baton Rouge, especially with the bus rapid transit. And last but not least, when we talk about reinvestment, lifting up North Baton Rouge, I have to mention our Choice Neighborhoods project around the Ardendale community. Transformative.
Thank you. Mr. Piazza?
You know, I'll have to say that it's sad that when we've noticed over the last few decades that North Baton Rouge was slowly migrating to South Baton Rouge, and we could have done things to in the past to have prevented some of the decay that we're seeing today. But I think it's important that the administration gets involved in and to effectively recruit these industries. Like E said earlier, education is going to have to be addressed, and we have to stop saying that this role does not sit at the hands of the mayor president, because although it doesn't, there are ways for maybe for school choice to become a policy that we can implement throughout the parish. I think it's very important and that we allow students to not be restrained by where they live and have to go to certain schools and failing schools at that to get their education. Because if we can't provide a strong workforce, we can't aggressively recruit new industries to come here. Additionally, I think it's important that we go through these areas and we address these abandoned properties and these blighted properties, and we continue to clean them up and take responsibility or shift the responsibility back to the owners that aren't doing it properly. And it's accountability, and that's a lot of that is simple business practices that we have to hold the folks accountable and have to put ordinances in place that hold these landlords and some lords accountable for not properly doing so. But we've got to put more money in North Baton Rouge. We know that Walmart wanted to come, but the crime was so bad that the theft was going to be too high that they decided not to come. And so when you talk about an area that's considered a food desert and you have a company like Walmart willing to invest, create jobs, and put a super center there, and they won't come because crime, we've got to address crime. So until we address our education and put a real plan, which will take quite a while to fix, and we address crime, which can be addressed promptly by putting more patrol officers on the street street and paying our first responders more, then it's hard to really encourage new folks to come bring development. So it's a multi-layer plan, but it's definitely possible, and the folks in North Baton Rouge have suffered for too long.
Thank you. In keeping with, yes, we have a question.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
You said if a candidate mentioned something that you had worked on, you could say something
Well,
about it?
if you are referenced by name.
Oh,
If
you have to be referenced by
yes,
name.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
got it.
And that is what I was getting ready to mention. In keeping with the rules that we stated earlier at the beginning of tonight's debate, Mayor President Broom was referenced in that, so she receives a 1.5-minute rebuttal.
Thank you so much. First and foremost,
I didn't say administration.
No, you referenced her by name. You referenced, you said Mayor Broom. You did. Yes. Yeah.
well, let's do this. They'll have plenty of opportunity if they want to reference me in the next questions. We can.
Again, in keeping with the rules tonight.
Yes, sir.
I'm about to state the rules once again. Each candidate receives 2 minutes to respond to each question. If that candidate references another candidate on the panel, that candidate receives 1.5-minute rebuttal. If that candidate re-references the person that referenced them, that person then receives 30 seconds. Are we all clear with that? Are we all clear?
Yes, we're.
All right, thank you. In keeping with our economic development segment, last year, when U.S. News and Report listed out its list of best states, Louisiana was again ranked towards the bottom in healthcare, education, and traffic. Of course, you all have mentioned some of education tonight, but in keeping with that, how can we move past the gridlock and see improvements to our commutes regarding traffic, roadways, and infrastructure, especially being that it is tied to economic growth throughout the parish? In keeping with the round-robin format, State Representative Marcel, you are allowed to go first.
Thank you. I believe that it's been reported and studied that we are number 13 in mid-sized cities in congestion. I mean, I think that we've got to know that we have to do something about that. That is not a ranking that I'm proud of. I was on the House Transportation Committee when I was the last session, and so I worked in order to help to get the exit that you see at Washington Street. There are a lot of issues that we must do to clear up the traffic problems in Baton Rouge. One of them that I believe is important is that we get a toll, whether that's the bump project on Airline Highway or somewhere else. We need to stop asking the citizens to pay additional taxes and find a way for the people who are coming through our city, whether that's a loop, a bump, or what have you, to pay it, because we do it everywhere else, whether that's Florida, Texas, or wherever. We need to come up with a solution for that, and certainly the bridge. And you know, the traffic congestion here, I know we're gonna hear that we've passed the MOVE BR plan, and that's great, except that that's a 30-year tax on our people. I'm looking to do something immediate and work with that plan in terms of moving the traffic forward and getting us through the traffic, getting us back to our children, getting us back to our homes. And so that's why I think that we can do something additionally in using the bus rapid transit money that we've had for 10 years. And that could help to mitigate some of the problems that we face in our traffic challenges and congestion in this city.
Thank you. Mayor President Broom.
Oh, I'm delighted and excited to share that as we speak, we are rolling out light synchronization for our city and parish, 100 lights, part of the 200 light synchronization that will take place in our MOVE EBR, which indeed is transformative for our roads, for our transportation. But of course, we can't stop there. My vision for the city and parish is to move forward with a multimodal mindset. So we're already starting that with the Plank Road Corridor Project. You know, when I came in office, they wanted to do a bus rapid transit that would only cover a 4-mile stretch. I said no to that because I wanted to include more people in this city and parish. And by working with our federal partners, we received more money for a bus rapid transit project that is going to extend now 9 miles from North Baton Rouge, Harding Boulevard to LSU. Transformative. Now we've got to get the bike paths going that will perhaps be a part of some of our movie BR money, because our citizens have an opportunity to weigh in on the community enhancement projects that will be forthcoming. It's also vitally important that we make sure that our communities are walkable. So focusing on walkability is another project. And of course, the bridge, certainly, as I sit on the commission for that, has to take place. And actually, we're laying the groundwork for a bridge in the region through one of our projects with Move EBR. All of that will not only help us as a community, as a region, city, and parish, but it will help us as we move forward in economic growth.
Thank you. Mr. Piazza?
Yeah, we have to build, as we've all, I think everyone here agrees, we have to build a bridge, and we can do that without, we can't wait on government. The state has already said it would take 7 years to do so, and funding would be very challenging, and we cannot wait 7 years because we know that about 75% of the folks, the traffic congestion is because folks are traveling into and out of the parish for work every day, and that's a problem because in addition to the traffic jam, we are losing taxpayer dollars to folks living in outlying parishes. So those revenues could be collected here if those folks lived here. However, we've got to build the bridge and we've got to build a loop, and that can be done with a private funding so that our taxpayers don't have to come out of pocket, completely private funding for that matter. And then it also shifts the responsibility from the state and the local governments to have to implement that. Also, in addition to that, as you see in, as Representative Marcel said, you see in other states, Texas through Florida, those folks that are traveling all the way from California to Florida using our interstate, it all comes down to one lane, and they need to be paying for that bridge because most of those folks aren't getting off the interstate to get the gas or to fuel up or to spend money in our city because it's such a traffic jam. So it's really a disservice to the residents that live here because these new roads or these repaved roads rather, and these potholes that are being filled are only getting us to the traffic jam quicker. And we got to really fix the issue, which is the fact that we need a loop and we need a bridge. And as mentioned earlier, that will create economic development in addition to jobs. And so I believe there's a really good way to accomplish that without costing the taxpayers any more money. It's important that we fix this because again, if we don't address our traffic issues, it's going to be hard to recruit individuals to want to live here in the parish. But also, I think St. George is going to be, when and if that passes like we believe, I think it's going to bring a lot of development in the part of the parish and really bring some more money into the parish because it's going to retain folks inside the parish as opposed to ones that are currently leaving to go outside of the parish.
Thank you. Mr. Gayrard?
Yeah, excuse me, I call my program No Havoc Traffic. Go to my website, fusetherouge.org, and you can see much more developed thought on this. This format is obviously very limiting, so you got to go there to see what we really think. Also, the education, by the way, didn't mention this, but it's going to be $8,000 per student, and it's going to bring a transformation which will make people re-migrate into this parish. So you won't see as much traffic to Livingston, to Ascension, to these other places because there'll be people here because the schools will be here. So, so what do you do about traffic per se? Build a bridge. Quit being like the instant replay referees and just make a decision. You get the parish presidents from around the area, get us together, make a decision, and go to the government, go to private enterprise, and get the thing built. We also need limited access highways in the meantime. You got 419 from Lobdell over to 190. Get it over the old bridge. Do the bump thing on Airline High, which needs to be developed anyway. Go the other way, LA1 to the Donaldsonville Bridge. Do a limited access highway there. You got to get volume off of the interstate. How about you go Nicholson, which is part of the Move EBR program? It's going to be 4-laned anyway. Bring that out to Ascension and hook that up to the interstate out there in Gonzales. So are there things you can be doing? And Move EBR is good. It's a good starting point. But the thing, and I know she doesn't get time for this, but it's all drawing board things. That's over the next 30 years. I got to imagine, I've never been to the mayor's office, but there's got to be a lot of drawing boards in there. Not many walls, a lot of drawing boards. So we got to get other lock points. I call them 1,000 points of fright that we have in the parish that need to be addressed in addition to that program. And there are areas that the citizens can help us find, like the one I go on every day, Essen off the interstate. It goes down to one lane, and it's just frustrating. And so we all see these problems around the parish, and we need to address them and address them more rapidly and not wait another 4 years.
Thank you. In keeping with economic development, the next question is, in the January 2020 issue of the Baton Rouge Business Report, Stephanie Cargile is quoted as saying that the most pressing need in Baton Rouge is the redevelopment of North Baton Rouge. One, do you agree or disagree? And if so, what plans do you specifically have for the encouragement of the redevelopment of North Baton Rouge? We will begin with Mayor President Broome.
Well, certainly the redevelopment of North Baton Rouge is a top priority. I would have to enlarge that to say the redevelopment of disinvested communities is a top priority, which includes North Baton Rouge, but there are also other pockets of disinvestment that exist in our community. So as it relates to North Baton Rouge, moving forward, I think to encourage reinvestment, it would be great, and we will be working on identifying 10 to 15 parcels of land that can certainly be used for redevelopment. Secondly, we already started through the pandemic a Restart BR program, which includes micro grants for small businesses, and I'd like to develop a capital fund for minority businesses so that they can, those that want to be a part of North Baton Rouge or other disinvested communities will have that capital accessible to them. In addition, as I said, we do have projects that are in the making. And these projects, that's because they are such as Move EBR, touted as 30 years, we are rolling out projects as we speak with Move EBR. The 30 years is more applicable to the financing, and so that program in and of itself will be a huge catalyst for redevelopment in disinvested communities. That, coupled with the Plank Road Corridor project, coupled with the Choice Neighborhoods grant, will certainly be a boost for North Baton Rouge.
Mr. Piazza.
To answer the question, yes, I would definitely support more development in North Baton Rouge, and I believe there's a lot of ways to achieve this, but we've got to recognize that the folks that live in North Baton Rouge don't choose to necessarily live in that area and don't choose to live in an area of poverty or an area that is abandoned by folks that own property and don't maintain their property. So it goes back to what I said earlier with accountability. We have got to, as a parish, hold one another accountable, and we can't expect the city parish to cover all the shortfalls that the folks that own these properties aren't taking care of. But we can hold them accountable by, if they're not maintaining their property within certain guidelines that the city parish should provide, then we can obviously have consequences for failure to do so and take action as needed. We have to repurpose some of these properties. We can't just recruit businesses and expect folks to come out there, because the reality is there's got to be economic activity, meaning that there's got to be folks that live in this area that have money to spend at businesses. So when people say, knock big things down or build it and they'll come, I have to disagree, because we've seen parts of the parish, as you see Florida Boulevard and Maison Blanche, which has been for sale for a long time. They built it and they just don't come. And so Cortana Mall is another example of they built it and they used to come, but they don't come anymore. So we've got to be strategic in taking these parts of the parish. We got to clean it up. We owe it to these taxpayers, the folks in this parish in the northern part that have been left behind, if you will, that we have to ensure that we are addressing it and we're assisting them, because it's not their fault that they live in such areas and they have neighbors that abandon their property. So there's a way to repurpose these properties in a partnership and hold them accountable. And if these folks that own these properties aren't held accountable, don't maintain what they're supposed to, then they're going to have to pay the consequences. So it's very important that we address the issues and have proactive measures to prevent this from happening again.
Thank you. Mr. Gayrard?
Yeah, and again, go to fusetherouge.org for a further explanation, but I think it comes down to governmental philosophy. And I believe in smaller and less government. Government lives within a budget, government that's more efficient, government that follows the Constitution, government that maximizes individual liberty and freedom underneath the umbrella of common sense. So you use government, though, to lay foundations. And that's what we need to do in North Baton Rouge. And I totally agree. That is the most undeveloped part of the city, and something has to be addressed there. But the economy, the free enterprise, capitalism will revitalize that if you just lay down foundations. You build it and they will come. Begins with the education. You change that, you see businesses, new schools, school-related businesses descend upon that area because it's underserved. You get the crime under control, which I assume we're going to talk about in a little bit. But one of the reasons businesses don't develop there is because it is a crime-ridden area, and businesses do not want to just set up shop in areas that they know they can have that kind of a problem. So you develop a underserving educational system. You have crime that's a problem, and so yeah, you're going to have a problem with that area. So if you have government that sets up the right underpinnings, and then you can certainly see a transformation that's going to happen by itself. I'm not so in favor of a lot of government activity that pushes government-sponsored incentives into an area, but I want them to get the impediments out the way to let it come naturally. And you can get Southern and LSU involved, obviously. I happen to be involved in a food incubator program with the LSU Ag Center, which helps develop new food businesses. It's a great thing. I'm developing a new food business, and it's an amazing thing. I want to see that expanded into the tech sectors and all the sectors. So there's things you can do that government can help direct and help lay foundations, but don't be too overly involved in that process.
State Representative Marcel.
To answer your question, yes, I believe that we must invest in North Baton Rouge for the infrastructure. Now, what I also believe is that we have to be intentional. You have to create wealth in North Baton Rouge, not give them kibbles and bits, not $2,500 grants, not small money, not apply for a $25,000 grant, but actually if you have $1 billion budget, get higher than 1% for DBEs and African American people who live in that area. When you create wealth in an area, then you lift those people up and allow them to build up their own community, and then others definitely will come. And let me just say that we need to utilize our youth in helping to structure. If we create workforce programs where we have our youth involved in helping to rebuild, at the same time while we're breaking down some of these larger contracts that we have, down to, when it's possible, to $10 million, where the small businesses can reach those, where they don't have issues with the bond capacity. You've got to create wealth in that while you're doing the infrastructure. Get the community involved in those investments along with the youth. You pull the youth up, you rebuild your North Baton Rouge, and you create wealth and not give them pennies to fight over.
Thank you. And lastly, in the economic development category, as stated earlier, there's been mention of St. George. With the proposed city of St. George, if it continues, and it is a hot button issue right now within the community, as mayor, if St. George becomes a reality and it's operating as its own municipality, how would you deal with any economic fallout left by their exit? Mr. Piazza?
We have an idea of how much shortfall in revenue is estimated, but we have to have a better understanding of that. We have to also remember that when this does occur, the services that are currently being rendered by the city parish are not going to have to continue in its full capacity. They're obviously will be things that the city parish will have to maintain as they may do in Central or Zachary or Baker, but there will also be cut in services and thus a reduction in cost. So we will work with leaders in St. George, just like they work with leaders in Zachary and Central and Baker to ensure that that these folks get what they need. They are constituents of the East Baton Rouge Parish, and together as one parish, we are stronger. So we will work with these folks to ensure that there's no shortfall in the city of Baton Rouge. And if that means that, obviously there will be some funding gap that's going to have to be filled, but there's a way to address that, and it could be, and probably likely will be, at taking a hard look at the current budget and finding inefficiencies in a way to reduce the cost of government and the services we're providing, because it's clearly proven that we're just not adequately providing that at this moment. And so we've got to address that, but we have to remember these folks are our neighbors, and we have to love one another and work with one another, and remember that they are part of this parish. So I will work with those folks to ensure that they have what they need, that it's a smooth transition, and that it's done responsibly, because at the end of the day, the mayor president is responsible for the parish, and so it's got to be, the responsibility falls on them to ensure that they are set up for success and that they don't fall even in a worse place, because then that would be a tragedy for all of us. So, I think, again, like I said, I believe that St. George will create some economic development in the parish, because it will enable people to want to invest in that part of the area, which will be better for the parish as a whole, because it's going to retain folks inside the parish, which are currently leaving.
Thank you. Mr. Gayrard?
Yeah, I don't buy the premise that it's inevitable. I support Mayor Broom's opposition to this. I have a big problem with it. It goes against my whole idea of Fuse the Rouge. And by the way, go to fusetherouge.org. They love me saying this, because you'll see more talk about it. But I don't think it's right that 17,000 folks can dictate what happens to 500,000 folks in a parish. And the way this was going about and I understand the organizers. I'm very sympathetic. I'm probably philosophically aligned with them on a lot of things. And so I understand their frustration with the way the city has treated them going way back. But this was not the answer. And I think you could almost say that they cheated in many ways to get this passed. The first time around, they drew a certain map. And by the way, it's not like Baker or Zachary or Central, which were identifiable cities already. This is just, you just threw paint up on a map, and all of a sudden they want to call that a city. So what they did, they drew boundaries initially, and they had a vote, and it was going to fail. So they went back and redrew the boundaries. And what did they redraw? Suddenly, it's going like this, and whoops, it's a big box. Who lives in that box? Black people. It's African Americans. And so they were skewing the vote. They were intentionally skewing the vote. And so I know that the lawyers are hanging their hat, and I'm a lawyer, and I've looked at it. They're hanging the hat on those kind of tactics that were used by the St. George folks. And again, if I was mayor, I would bring them in, because I want to address their problems that they have with the city parish and bring us all together. I want to be one parish. I live in St. George, where it's going to be St. George, and I don't see myself as a St. Georgian. I see myself as a Baton Rougean. When I travel somewhere outside the state, I don't say I'm from St. George. I say I'm from Baton Rouge. And that's what I want us all to be, one city, one parish, like Coach O says, one heartbeat in this city.
Thank you. State Representative Marcel?
I think your question was, if they were to become a city, what would we do in order to make sure the costs were in place for them to stand and for Baton Rouge? And so what I would say to that question is this. One of the things you got to do is bring them into a meeting of the minds, and talk about the legacy costs, the cost that they will owe to us, whether that's for infrastructure projects or whether that's bonded money that we already have bonded. Whatever that is, we have to talk about those things. Then you have the issue of retirement that we have to deal with, and certainly public safety. And some of the services I think that Piazza alluded to earlier, that we would have to figure out which portion of that would save Baton Rouge money, but at the same time, make sure that they have the coverage that they need. So it will be a juggling of what services that they need versus what they're already getting from Baton Rouge. There will be a savings on one side, But absolutely, I think it's a loss to the entire parish that they have pulled away. But at the same time, they are part of the parish. If they win the lawsuit, we would have to sit down, talk about legacy costs, talk about the services that the people in that area would have to continue to get. And we would have to do that by looking at our books and things that are owed to them. We certainly have to pay those to them if they become a city, similar to what we did when Central pulled away and Baker pulled away. Although, as Mr. Rouge has told us, it was a different scenario with those two particular cities, Baker and Central, and also Zachary, that pulled away. So that's what I would do as mayor president, sit down and work out something with them.
Thank you. Mr. Piazza, you were referred to. We will get to your rebuttal after the response from Mayor President Broom. Mayor President?
Yes. First of all, when I talked about those issues that were lingering in 2016 prior to me coming into office, the proposed breakaway city of St. George was one of those issues. So you know what I did as the leader of this city and parish? I reached out to them before an election ever took place. When the election took place, I sent them a very detailed letter requesting certain information to show me how you're going to stand up a city of 86,000 people. What is your plan? What will be the cost that you will embark upon and that the city and parish will have to be responsible for? That was my request. That request was not answered. So, as the leader of this city and parish and a responsible leader, I had to take the next step. The next step was prescribed litigation. And the prescribed litigation that we are now involved in is not contesting the election, although I have never been for a breakaway city. But it's not contesting the election. The election has taken place. It is asking for the same information that I asked for before. What is your plan? Now, one of the positives, if they are successful in their litigation, is guess what? We will know the dollars and cents because we will have a plan. But as of now, we do not have a plan. And a city of 86,000 people should know what the plan is for them to proceed and move forward. And the rest of us in this parish deserve a plan as well.
Thank you. In keeping with the rules for tonight, Mr. Piazza, you were referenced by Representative Marcel.
I think she disagreed with one of the points I made, so I don't have anything to rebuttal to. But I will add, the one thing I forgot to say about it is that, I think the real tragedy is that we've all forgotten the issue of why St. George originally started, and it's among other things now, but it's because education hasn't been addressed. And I just think that it just rings home to why it's so important the mayor president's office insert themselves. And if that even means, taking back control of the school board, which I don't propose because I don't think that's a good idea, but we've got to figure out a better way because we owe it to our youth to ensure that they have a great education. And I think that if we could have figured out a way to get them their independent school district without, which would be obviously challenging the way the law is written now, but I think there could have been a way to have completed so, and I'm still optimistic with the right leadership at home that they would consider reconsidering the act altogether, because that's what really started this whole movement, if you will, was the beginning of education. Now it's grown in many other things, but it started with education, and I think we just have to continue to address that if we're really going to progress as a parish.
Thank you. Keeping things moving forward, we will move to our next category, law and order. Currently, the police union is seeking a raise for the officers of Baton Rouge who are serving us daily. On Airline Highway in front of the Baton Rouge Police Department building, there's a billboard sponsored by the BRPD union that says, quote, "Support the police, not the criminal." Regarding the raise, what are your thoughts about both the raise and would your administration support them? And also, what are your feelings about that sign, "Support the police, not the criminal"? Mr. Gayrard, you're first.
Yeah, this is one of my major planks, and go to fusetherouge.org. I am for combining the sheriff's office and the city police into one new entity. So I want to get rid, essentially, of the two police forces we have right now and combine it into a new entity called the Guardian Rouge. There'll be no more blue, there'll be no more green, it'll be red. It'll be a hip maroon color maybe. The uniforms, the cars, the whole coloring will be red, and that symbolizes a whole new mindset. And it would be better paid. There would be more money. It'd be a highly trained, a highly paid, a highly elite criminal fighting force that we would have in the parish. I would like to call it policing on steroids, community policing on steroids, because I think they need to engage the public a lot more than what's going on now. I think there's a lot of antagonism right now, but I would like to think that that would go away with a whole new mindset that would come in for both the police and for the community when they see this new entity come around. I would encourage, by way of additional bonuses and pay for the policemen, for the guardians, the Guardian Rouge, to live within the parish. I would even give even higher bonuses and pay if they live in the worst neighborhoods. So I want the guardians to be engaged totally within the community. I want people to know Guardian Rouge members, so they're not seen as just this antagonistic force that comes into the neighborhood. I want to get them out of the cars. I want to put them on bikes and on horses and any kind of way to be the 21st century version of the cop on the beat, like the old cop in the movies in New York City, Officer O'Malley or whatever. So I think it's a whole new mindset that has to come around, and I think once you do that, I think you'll get past a lot of these problems that we're seeing right now with the antagonism, even within the administration and the police force today.
Thank you. State Representative Marcel.
Thank you. First of all, I disagree with the billboards. I don't think that you can get anything done by dividing the police department with the community. And I think that's very divisive method that they have used. Yes, the crime rate is high in Baton Rouge, but you don't fix it by putting up a billboard. I also believe that we should incentivize the police officers to stay in the parish, but not only stay in the parish. I proposed an ordinance when I was on the city council, and we talked about it, about police officers actually living in the city, because it makes our city safer, in my opinion. I believe that we have to pay policemen a fair wages. I don't think that they make enough money. Not only them, but firefighters. Both of them are on the front line. We oftentimes talk about the police, but we cannot forget about the firefighters. I think that they start around the same pay, and so you get what you pay for in a lot of instances, because we want the best of the best. So we have to find ways to increase their salaries. We have to put police in the community, and I think we have to rearrange the way we're looking at policing today. And I think what we do is we think we can police our way out and put everybody in jail, and the sign indicates criminals. And so when you put people in jail, all you're doing is training them on how to be a criminal in a lot of instances. So I believe that we need to give them second chances and sometimes third chances, and perhaps put them into the community to do community service work versus locking them up, and train them. I think that's a better use of what we should do with the people who they refer to as criminals.
Thank you. Mayor President Broome.
Well, first of all, there are several billboards that exist around our city and community, and those billboards, I'm very disappointed that the union would put up those billboards. They are very disparaging, and certainly they do not represent the mindset of the entire Baton Rouge Police Department, which is something that we need to make very clear. Some officers that I know said that they were questioned about the billboards, and they said, I didn't have anything to do with that. It did not represent their sentiment about their work or their what they do here in the city and parish. So, in the city specifically, excuse me. So they put up, the union put up those billboards, not the entire Baton Rouge Police Department. When I came into office, I have tried to work with our Baton Rouge Police Department by making sure that we first started with closing the gap between our citizens and our police department. Secondly, we had a pay raise study that was done. Then we had management partners come in and do an efficiency study. As a result of the efficiency study, we have indicated savings that can take place in the Baton Rouge Police Department if implemented. I plan to implement those savings in the form of a raise. I have talked with our fire department. I talked with all of our first responders, and I am concerned about each and every one of them. And I believe that at the end of the day, our budget will reflect that concern and appreciation.
Thank you. Mr. Piazza.
Yes, you know, I definitely will give those officers a raise. As mentioned by many of our folks here, you know, about living in the parish, the problem right now is that we don't pay our officers enough to, and don't have quality schools where we can expect the folks to live inside this parish and give their kids adequate education. Most of our officers and first responders are working either off duty or overtime, or overtime. That's correct. To make ends meet, and that's because the base salary is so low. So I believe also the reason I want to increase the pay is not just because I want to give money out, because they haven't had a raise in 13 years, which is just travesty. Then you have that we're paid 38% below the national average, which again, with one of the biggest issues of crime in the city, the United States, that's an issue. But I do believe in, you know, while I don't commend any negative attention that someone would bring to our city, like the police union, I do believe in the First Amendment. I do believe in the right of free speech, and so I do believe they have that ability if they want to. But what I think it really is while I agree they don't represent the entire police department in any capacity, because I don't think any union supports or has the agreement of all their workers, but I do believe they are screaming and saying we need help. It's been long enough. So I don't necessarily agree with their tactics, but I have to respect their tactics because at the end of the day, freedom of speech is allowed, and we don't want to control that method. The union is also the force that protects these officers when incidents happen in terms of representation. So they do serve a purpose, but I don't think their method of getting there might be the most productive. It probably drives more division. But the reality is we have to give our officers a raise, and when you pay more, you can recruit better qualified candidates. And right now we don't have a lot of applications in, so I think by paying more and increasing the pay, we can recruit better qualified candidates and give them the pay they deserve to have.
Thank you. In continuance with the law and order category, the next question is, nationally, we have seen a summer of unrest regarding the protest of police killings of unarmed citizens of color, such as George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. Here in the city of Baton Rouge, it is a reminder to our incident that made national news with the Alton Sterling case. Recently, the Metro Council voted down a measure to pay a civil suit amount to his family. Do you agree or disagree with the city paying the suit amount? And we will begin with Representative Marcel.
Thank you. First of all, let me say that, you know, I was intricately involved in the Alton Sterling killing because it happened in my district. I was there day in and day out trying to keep the peace in this city. And it was a terrible time for our city and our parish. And of course, it went throughout the nation. Now, what I will say is that I believe the family should be compensated. I believe that they should be compensated fairly. I don't think that the amount that the council has proposed is preposterous. I don't think that that's a number that they just grabbed out of the sky. I believe that they had a mediator. The mediator came back with that suggestion of that amount. And now that we've paid for a mediator, we really don't like the suggestion of the mediator. I also believe if I were mayor president, I would stand up and go to the mic and say that at the hearing.
Thank you. Mayor President Broom?
You know, one of the pillars of leadership is knowing when to insert yourself in a situation and then inserting yourself in a situation in the way that you believe is the best for the chief executive officer of this city and parish. My stance on this issue has been crystal clear to everyone. I do support making sure that this takes place for the family, that it is resolved. I have told that to council members. I have said it publicly in public settings. And so, yes, a settlement should take place. The council should come into agreement sooner than later on a settlement. This should not linger into the next council. And so my stance on this issue is very clear. Yes, I support the settlement. Now, if anybody has any questions about where I stand, you've heard it right here, if you didn't hear it before.
Mr. Piazza?
You know, I don't believe that the folks on the council and the mayor president are in a position to make such a decision, because I believe that's what we have judicial system for, and we have to leave it to the judicial system to serve its purpose. That's what how the government is built in America. While it's a tragedy what's happened, we have to remember that we don't have all the facts. In terms of, at this moment, I don't have the facts. The mayor, president, and the council may have seen more facts, but I can't say that I would make a settlement with the family, because I don't believe that's the position or the authority of the government to do so. I think that's left for the judicial system to handle that, and I believe that when you do that, or try and insert yourself in a position where you're not necessarily meant to be, you can create a lot of problems, and you could just set a bad precedent. I think that it's important that we allow the process to work out. I think it's important that we respect whatever outcome does, but I don't believe that decisions should be at the hands of the Metro Council, because that's a large sum of funds. And the reality is that the state government and the federal government did not pursue charges. And so, as an outsider who doesn't know all the facts, and I'm just reiterating that, I believe that if the state and the federal government did not pursue charges, there's probably some reason for that. And so it would be hard for me to say that I think the council or the mayor president's office should ever get in a position of making settlements of issues in this nature, because I believe it sets a bad tone on how things will be dealt with in the future, and could also create situations where people are intentionally enacting or provoking folks to ensue on a problem to get a payment. So I think it would be a bad narrative, and I think we should respect the judicial system as it is, and we should we know they've made mistakes, but we we elect judges, so we got to make sure we're electing the right people to these positions to make the right decisions. But I have a lot of concern without knowing all the facts, and so at this time I can't say that I support that.
Thank you. Mr. Gayrard?
Yeah, go to fusetherouge.org, you'll see more. Yeah, it was mediated, but in my experience as a lawyer, mediators are there to settle cases, to reach some kind of settlement. That's all they want to do. It's not about wisdom necessarily. I think we should let that thing go to trial. I mean, yes, it's divisive, but there are facts out there that aren't clear. People hear stuff on the streets, they just talk. I want to see it clear as day in a court of law where there's evidence and there's rules of procedure, and let's just let everything fly out and let's see what we have, and hopefully we can have the citizens and society will accept what our courts do, because that is our system of government. But a way we could have avoided this in the first place, if you would institute something like what I'm advocating, the Guardian Rouge, combining the city and the sheriffs into a better elite, better trained force, because I think that was some of the problem. Maybe we need better training. I also want to see them better fit. No more donuts for the cops, sorry, for the Guardian Rouge. I want to see them martial art trained to where maybe these deadly encounters using deadly force wouldn't happen in the first place, if they could address those quickly and more easily without resorting to tasers and then to guns. And so if you have the kind of force in place that I envision, then I think that you can stop these things from happening in the future. But to get back to the question, I think it is our rule of law that is important here, and I think it's important for us as a parish to come to a mature decision and move on, and hopefully with that decision and with a new elite crime-fighting force like the Guardian Rouge, we can go to the rest of this millennia and have a better city with a better, more advanced police force.
Thank you. So just for the record, Mr. Gaylord, you would like to see it go to trial. Mr. Piazza, you're not in favor of it. Mayor President and State Representative, you both are in favor of it, correct? Thank you. In keeping with law and order, nationally, the community relationship between law enforcement and the community has been one that has been fractured. What steps would your administration take in order to help heal that wound and help it grow into the relationship in order to protect and support both the community and the police force? Mayor President, you're first.
Well, we've been fortunate that through my tenure as mayor, we've received multi-million-dollar grants to do just that. One of the grants that many of our community partners are involved with our Baton Rouge Police Department is the Collective Healing Grant. And certainly that is an initiative where 100 Black men and other groups have been a part of it to help close that gap between the community and the Baton Rouge Police Department. In addition to that, we were fortunate to receive the Restart grant, which deals with communities in trauma. A part of that is being used for closing the gap between our Baton Rouge Police Department and the citizens of our community. And last but not least, I will be receiving very shortly recommendations from the Commission on Racial Equity and Inclusion that I established through executive order that I'm sure will have some very solid recommendations towards how we continue to close that gap in our community.
Thank you. Mr. Piazza.
I believe that public safety and instilling law and order in our community is the duty of all elected officials to ensure that we can do that. I believe community policing is important in some regards in terms of I believe we all have to work together with our law enforcement. However, our taxpayer dollars go to pay and fund the police department. So no one wants to go work all day long and then have to come home and be the police officer in their neighborhood. But I do think it's important that there is a relationship between the community and neighbors and residents and law enforcement that are respectful and working together. We must, put more officers on the streets as I propose. We need 100 more patrol officers because when we have adequate numbers on the streets, then we can start to see where these folks are in their communities and they're there regularly. And they're not only coming on a reactive basis, but proactively. And so they can become members of this community and they can ingrain themselves to where they are known by name and they're seen regularly. And it's understood that they are there to protect them and not for conflict. I would assume, and again, this is assumption here, that some of our policies of the police department are probably outdated, and that's to no fault of anyone here. That's just the policies that have been in place that get updated, probably as time goes on, but probably not frequent enough. And I think the way that technology has changed, body cameras haven't been around forever, so the policies that were around before then don't necessarily work today because there's more accountability that's held. And so I think we have to really take a look at the policies of the department and ensure that adequate training is there and that we need to reallocate some funding for that because we need to have better community involvement, ensure that folks that work for law enforcement also feel protected, but also the community is not afraid every time law enforcement shows up because they're not supposed to feel that way. And I don't believe that's the feeling across our parish, but there is obviously, a shortage. And so when you have folks working so often and they're tired, they're not always in the best frame of mind. And you also don't know what you're going to when you get to some of these places. So I think we just have to ensure that we have more officers on the street so we can have more resources to give the community a better, safe feeling.
Thank you. Mr. Gaylord.
Yeah, one of the important things is to understand that if you look at the combination of some of my ideas at fusetherouge.org, you'll see how they come together. Like the education thing that we're talking about. If you have a better education system, if you have a system where the government's funding it, don't run it, funding but not running the education, and every child has an $8,000 credit stipend to go where they will and let the free market rule, then let me tell you what, I mean, that's going to transform our society. And all of a sudden, you'll have a lot more opportunity for unique things, and there'll be unique opportunities for the Guardian Rouge to get involved in new wave of schools. They'll be better trained, they'll be elite. The kids, if you have a kid and the parent is a Guardian Rouge, they'll go to school, they'll be proud that their parent is a member of the Guardian Rouge. People will have pride. People from around the country will come and emulate us with this new step that we're taking. There'll be efficiency of scale. There'll be all sorts of things that we can accomplish with this. And the other thing I want to do is get them away from traffic, maybe like more electronic monitoring, but I don't want to see my elite crime fighters working a fender bender at the corner of Corsey and Jones Creek. Or Choctaw and Plank. They need to be fighting the bad criminals, the murderers and the rapists and the bad guys. And so that's the mindset that I want to develop. A force that is so elite, that is so well trained, that is so well paid and so well respected that it is community policing on steroids, and the people will just love them. The people will have an opportunity to get to know them. The people will have an opportunity to engage with them in all sorts of different capacities. And I think it's just going to be better all the way around for our society as a whole. And I think it's going to be a new day, not only here, but maybe in America if they choose to copy us.
Thank you. State Representative Marcel.
In order to create an atmosphere where the police and the community are getting along, I think there's going to take some effort on both parts. One of the things that I certainly want to do is create the community policing, where the police are getting out of their cars and actually touching people when there is not a crime, actually talking to the community, actually knowing the community. The other thing that I want to do is, I know we're sending some money from the state directly to BRPD currently. And one of the things that I would like to see some of the monies that we're sending from the state or grants to do is to make sure that we have a police department that has counseling in it, so that you would have that department to go out when there is a homeless person. That would be a specific unit, right? So if you know the homeless people in your community already, then you would send that particular officer out, that particular unit out rather, to deal with that situation. Same thing with the mental health issues, drug addiction issues. I believe that we need to rethink how we're going to police. All of the police department just can't be about locking people up or giving people tickets. It has to be about coming together as a unit and coming together with the community. When we community police in that manner, I think we get a wholesome community all together. I think that the police learned the communities, and the communities start to respect the police.
Thank you. Our final question for the law and order category. Recently, Baton Rouge Police Department had a case of a no-knock warrant gone extremely wrong. With the tragic death of Breonna Taylor and this latest case here in our city, what is your position on no-knock warrants? We'll begin with Mr. Piazza.
Yeah, you know, I definitely think that no-knock warrants are something that needs to be visited and really discussed in length. I do believe that there are times they can serve purpose, but as we've seen in our own community, you know, it could be tragic, very tragic. And so I don't agree with a no-knock warrant, because I also believe, you know, it becomes an invasion of privacy in some sorts. You know, criminals, obviously, they're going to run when they know they're being sought after. But I believe there's other ways to serve or to achieve the same result of a no-knock warrant, rather than actually knocking down the doors, but a way to do it where you can, you know, you have the right person. So, for example, if you believe that you want to serve this no-knock warrant, warrant at a home that you believe them to be in, rather than just kicking the door in the middle of the night and finding out you got the wrong person or at the wrong home or having a tragedy. Just monitor or surveil that house until you see them physically come out like you would in any normal instance and arresting them. So I don't agree with the notion of no-knock warrants the way they are now, because I believe, as we've seen nationally, that they can be ineffective and tragic, and that's what's happened. And I think it's, again, the community has to feel safe with law and order, and they have to know that we're here to protect them. But criminals have to be arrested as well. And so there's a happy medium of achieving that, and I don't believe the way that no-knock warrants are currently served are justified, because I believe, again, if you simply, rather than busting the door, if you just wait outside there and are surrounding it and ensure they can't get out, then you can serve the same purpose by just handling it once you see them actually come out of the residence or place.
Thank you. Mr. Gayrard?
Yeah, I would not be in favor of a total prohibition of the no-knock warrant, but because they do need to have a judge's approval in the first place. I think they should be used very judiciously. I think that they can be problematic. I think we've seen a lot more than just Breonna Taylor. Those kind of things go bad because there is bad information sometimes, and they're going into places they really shouldn't go. But that kind of all goes back to the Guardian Rouge. You'll see it, fusetherouge.org, and about the training. And if you have a more elite force and you have better intel and you have a better operation from head to toe in the police force, especially when it comes to going after very dangerous criminals. Let's not forget, I mean, these policemen, they put their lives on the line every day, and they got to go into situations that none of us would want to go into. And that is very dangerous, and they don't know what's on the other side of that door. They don't know if they have guns waiting for them, so they need to be careful too, and they have lives, and they have families, and they have kids at home that they want to go back to. So I think we need to keep all that in mind. But if you train the force correctly, if you have an elite force, that's not the city police, that's not the sheriff, but a brand new force that's created from the bottom up, then I think you can get past some of those problems. Make sure all the details are figured out. Make sure that it's judicial approval every time on that sort of thing, and you just go from there. And hopefully, those kind of tragic mistakes, will be very rare in the future.
Thank you. Representative Marcel?
First of all, let me say that my heart and prayers go out to the family. That situation could have been a lot worse. We could have had another Breonna Taylor, or even worse, multiple people could have been killed, because if you kicked down the door, then they could have fired back. They didn't know who it was. So I think that one of the things that have to happen is we do have to have more training on intel. The other thing I believe is that I'm told, and I don't have all the facts of that situation, that the people have lived there for a while. So my question would be, what intel did they use, and why were they kicking down a door where other people had lived for so long? They had bad information, but it wasn't like the person had moved out a couple of weeks before. So I am not supportive of no-knock warrants. I believe that they need to figure out a way to, and not only that, I think it really saddened me that after they realized that they had the wrong house, that they just got back into their cars and left. And something has to be done about that. You kick someone's door down, you get back in your car like nothing has happened, and that disturbs me also.
Thank you. Mayor President Broome?
I believe this is an issue where we all here are closely aligned in terms of certainly our compassion and concern around what happened and a proposed ban of no-knock warrants. So first, let me, as the Mayor President, let me share with you how this unfolded for me. I did not find out about what took place until the next morning. Immediately when I found out about what took place, you can imagine how concerned that I was, and I reached out to the family to express my concerns, apologies. I then had a conversation with our chief of police to try to get additional information in terms of what went wrong, and thank God no one was hurt in that process. I'm so thankful for that. But in the midst of this, I have asked Chief Paul to provide me with a report that gives me what has taken place specifically with that situation and the concern that I have about continuing no-knock warrants in Baton Rouge. I don't think that they are necessary, but I need to hear from my chief of police why they're even implemented and what could be a reasonable substitute for no-knock warrants. In addition, on the state level, with where Representative Marcel sits, there is a task force on police reform, and they are currently looking into no-knock warrants statewide. And so I think there are too many hazards associated with no-knock warrants, and I do not think it's the best path to take. I would like for my chief of police to give me a report as well on no-knock warrants.
Thank you. In keeping moving forward, our next category is faith and governing. With all of the political division that we see on the national level and seeing it seep into our discourse locally, what plans do you have to both heal the parish as well as bridge the gap of differing political ideologies so that we may move forward together as a city parish? Mr. Gayrard?
You know, I would say a lot of it is there's a lot of symbolism that would have to come into play there, and I think the mayor's office can use that bully pulpit to be more than just a policymaker, but maybe to be a leader and inspire people and motivate people. One thing I want to see, for instance, is in the area of quality of life and community relations. I'd like to see a central park be made where a city park golf course is now. We need to quit appeasing 17 golfers, and we need to make a central park like they have in New York City that serves 10 million people. Wouldn't that be wonderful that we could bring people together in the most beautiful area in the city, probably, that is right now 9-hole golf course that could be a park for entertainment, for festivals, for just picnics, for people just hanging out, for boat tours, and in combination with the 6 lakes that really do need to be cleaned up. So that would be one area that I would like to pursue. I would like to make a mascot of Baton Rouge. I want to do a Tigwar to be our new mascot of Baton Rouge. It'd be a combination tiger and a jaguar to kind of combine the traditional white and black parts of the community, the tigers and the jaguars, a Tigwar that the city could be proud of, and that maybe even BRCC would get rid of the bear, because I don't know why they're even the bears, and now they could become the BRCC Tigwars. So those things, kind of symbolic, that sort of thing. And then lastly, I think going back to the education, you know, if you have the fund it, don't run it, and all of a sudden you have this opportunity for everyone, this is especially going to be so good for the low-income people that will have opportunity now for a real education instead of the farce of an education they're getting today. I think that would create change that we can't even imagine. That would bring races together naturally when all of a sudden you have education that's all over the parish in all kind of different capacities. At that point, you have a true blending of the races and a true community.
Thank you. Representative Marcel?
Well, first of all, I think that in order to bring Baton Rouge together, you have to bring the two sides together. You gotta have an open dialogue about what it is that we can agree upon and what it is that most of us all want the same thing. We want a good education for our kids. We want great quality of life. We don't want our homes to flood. I think we can agree on a lot of those issues. I think what happens in Baton Rouge is one side of Baton Rouge does not realize what the other side of Baton Rouge experiences. And sometimes, and that's why you saw people come together in the killing of Floyd, because people actually saw it with their own eyes, and then they started to see, well, maybe Black Lives Matter had a point in the first place. But until people can see and feel some of your pain or see the issues that you face on a day-to-day basis, or understand those issues the underlying issues that we face with education, and where the parent has to work 2 jobs and there's sometimes one parent in the home or one grandparent. People don't understand that when they're not living, that's not their reality. So a lot of times, I believe that if we have to come over to this side and meet somewhere in the middle and talk about our issues and talk about the things that we have alike and figure out how we can come together and move forward as one city, one Baton Rouge, making Baton Rouge better.
Thank you. Mayor President?
I'm going to ask that you repeat the question, if you don't mind.
Sure. With all of the political division that we see on a national level and seeing it seep into our discourse locally, what plans do you have to both heal the parish as well as bridge the gap of differing political ideologies so that we may move forward together as one city, one parish?
Well, first of all, I believe that we are in a significant moment of time like we've never experienced. What happened in the killing of George Floyd has certainly opened the eyes of white, black, races across America in terms of what is going on with racism in America. And so when I first came into office, I reached out to every council member and asked if I could go worship with them, if we could have an opportunity to worship together, because I thought that would be a good way to get to know someone and to start. I mean, if you can start off in a positive atmosphere of the house of the Lord, then that's a good starting place. And so that was one of the initiatives that I took. I reached out, not only did I reach out, but I went to church with a number of our council members. And so I believe faith has to be an integral part, the faith community, in the healing and restoration that takes place in our community. Secondly, I think it's important that the Commission on Racial Equity and Inclusion that I established certainly not only will provide a recommendation in terms of what we can do as a community moving forward, but in addition, I look forward to them speaking publicly about their own experiences in a diverse commission with people intergenerationally, interracially, and coming up with recommendations. More importantly, I lead by example. My faith is my guiding force. And I believe that we should all start with loving each other unequivocally, unconditionally, without exception.
Thank you. Mr. Piazza?
You know, I believe that, that it's important that, and especially 2020 has shown us that we have got to set aside our political differences and ensure that we work together for the common good of all. And I believe that to be true here in East Baton Rouge Parish. And I'm optimistic with the council turning over 5 positions that we can get some new, fresh blood in the council to have some different leadership, that have some different mentality on how to work together to understand that we're not always going to agree on policies. We're not always going to agree on right from wrong. However, we have to work together as elected officials in the community to ensure that we provide the best services for those that elected us. I think it's important that we recognize that we all have differences and address that the problems in different districts aren't going to be the same as the problems that other districts have. And so we have to be open-minded and we have to be willing to sit down at the table and have these discussions. But I do also think it's important that government does not insert themselves too much into the lives of how we live, because I don't believe folks want to be controlled by anyone, let alone the government that they're paying to serve them. And so I think it's important that we minimize how much government interference we put in the lives of folks and just stay focused on what the end goal is, and that's providing a better service for the revenue that we're receiving in the parish to ensure that folks want to continue to grow here, thrive here, and prosper here for decades to come.
Thank you. In continuing with law and order, faith and governing, this is a 2-part question. I know that one of our candidates has touched on it briefly, but we'll question it. What role does your faith play in your political ideology and decision-making? And do you think that it is important to include community faith-based leaders in your decisions made by the city? And if so, how do you see their role within your proposed administration? We will begin with Representative Marcel.
Thank you. First of all, my faith plays a role in everything that I do. I believe that God will lead me and guide me, and regardless of whatever role that I'm in, I always seek God, and that's just my personal belief. With the role of ministers or faith-based organizations, I certainly came on when they had Together Baton Rouge, which I supported. There were faith-based from all over the city, Catholic, Presbyterians, Baptists, and everyone else. I believe that they play a role in government when they come to the table and tell you their issues that the community is facing and what they believe should be the direction of the city. Now, when they do that, it has to be a nonpartisan issue. And so that has happened with Together Baton Rouge on multiple issues, whether that was cats or whether that was something else going on in the city. I've seen them step up, and they are a faith-based group that started when I was on the Metro Council that I supported. And I think that we not only need to listen to the faith-based, but we need to listen to everyone that's a part of this parish, from Cheneyville, Pride, Port Hudson, all the way to the other end, past the proposed St. George. And so I think everybody has a role to play in the city parish government and has a voice, and should their voices be heard by the administration, and we should take those things into consideration.
Thank you. Mayor President Broome.
I am motivated to run for public office, and I have been motivated over the years. When I first started, by my faith. It was my faith that motivated me to run for public office. So my faith is the dominant thread of my life, and everything that I do is birthed from that. We have a number of faiths, of course, here in Baton Rouge. I am a committed Christian, and I believe that one of the greatest leaders of all time, that gives us all answers in terms of being effective servants as well as leaders, is Jesus Christ. And so that he is who I pattern my life after. And so beyond that, I have reached out and received wise counsel on various issues that we deal with in the city, in the parish, with the faith-based community. Why? Because the faith-based community not only, I believe, has answers that are rooted and grounded in truth, but in addition to that, they represent a large segment of our citizens, and they are on the front lines of service with them as leaders in the faith community. And so I consider myself having a kitchen cabinet, if you will, of faith-based leaders that when I'm challenged, I turn to them for advice. When we're dealing with a critical issue, I get their input. And I believe that our community certainly is strengthened by the input of our faith leaders.
Thank you. Mr. Piazza?
Yeah, similar to Mayor Broome, I felt here recently, I was undecided a year ago if I was going to run for this position or not, but I did feel a calling, and I believe that God has God has a plan for all of us, and we don't know what that plan is. We don't know how we fit into that role, but we're here today, and so I believe faith is very important. What I think is more important is to not necessarily use it as a critique to involve folks, but I think we have to trust that the folks that we elect and that we appoint to different positions are Christian folks and people that are of faith, and I think that quality that they have is better fit what they looking at their resume and the things they do and the leadership they provide. And if they are Christian believers, then I do believe that you'll see that tendencies from them, and you'll know where they stand in terms of how they manage and operate. But I do believe it's important to have folks of Christian faith at the table, because I do believe it's very important in guiding us, because I think there is a higher power with a greater plan that none of us know or are privy to, and so we have to be open to including everyone of all walks of life at the table, and that's including the faith-based organizations as well.
Thank you. Mr. Gayrard?
Every day I say the Serenity Prayer. And it's God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. I was raised a Catholic. I'm from Baton Rouge. I was raised a Catholic, went to Lady of Mercy. I went to Catholic High. And so I've been a traditional church goer. Now I find myself to be much more of a spiritual person. And if you go to fusetherouge.org, you'll see a lot more about my background. But I like this kind of question, actually, because we don't too often get to hear beyond just the issues. I mean, you can memorize answers to issues, so we all know what issues are coming up. So we can all do that. But what's in here? Like James Carville used to say about President Clinton, he'd say, "Where's your Senna? Where's your Senna?" And what he meant by that was, what do you really believe? What's in your heart? What are you going to think about on a daily basis? Because we're all going to face crises in this kind of position, no matter who wins, that we're not expecting, like COVID-19. Who knew that was coming? And so what is inside you that is going to dictate how you're going to live your life? Yes, I do believe you should have faith-based people involved in administration and in your life even, because that helps guide you. There's moral principles. You know, our founders were very moral people. They weren't traditional churchgoers either. For a lot of them, they were deists. But they believed in a higher power, and they reference it throughout the articles of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and everything they wrote in the Federalist Papers. So all that is just so very important, and so that's why I kind of feel personal about that, because I think we should bring that internal fortitude and these internal beliefs into how you govern a society, because the citizens need to know that. And so hopefully, we can have more of these questions in the future at some of these other forums.
Thank you. You mentioned COVID-19, and that is the segment that we are getting ready to embark upon. The COVID-19 virus has dominated our year. It is expected to continue on as a major factor in our lives, according to the CDC and the National Institute of Health, well into 2021. This pandemic has shown us the need for primary care throughout the parish. Currently, there is a lack of adequate or necessary health facilities parish-wide. Do you have any plans to, one, encourage proper preventative health care facilities throughout the parish? And would your administration support a local or area shutdown or a mandatory mask mandate if things were to explode and we would have to take steps back in terms of our phases? So that is Mayor President Broom.
I often reflect on my term in office, and there have been a number of crises that we have been faced with that we had to stand up and address. And of course, in 2020, a global pandemic hit our nation, hit the world, and hit Baton Rouge. And so I had to immediately act. I am very grateful that we had in place, while we did not have a city health department, we had our Healthy BR, which is the Mayor's Healthy City Initiative, that collaborates on a regular basis with our area hospitals. And by the way, with them, we have done a stellar community health needs assessment, which shares the needs of our community from a health framework. But immediately we went to work. We stood up the first drive-through testing site without any federal dollars, without any state dollars, and now we have 40 testing sites available. The global pandemic, COVID-19, certainly has impacted our health, our well-being, our economy, and I have worked as mayor president to first and foremost make sure that the health and well-being of our citizens is addressed while simultaneously working on our economy. And so access to health care was certainly brought to the forefront with the disparities that exist. We now have a primary care clinic that is going to be part of the How Place. Of course, Baton Rouge Emergency Room is now reopened. We have Our Lady of the Lake Clinic on Airline Highway. And so we are seeing a response to the healthcare disparities that exist in our community that were brought certainly to a higher level as a result of COVID-19. And I will continue to work with, in many instances, public-private partnerships like I did with Ochsner to make sure that we have a heightened level of access to health care.
Thank you. Mr. Piazza.
To answer the first part of your question, I do believe that preventative maintenance is important, and so I believe, as a member of a facility that is a preventative medicine doctor, I believe that it's important because what it's enabled me at a young age is my father was sick and my mother has an illness, and it allows me to be aware of any illnesses that might be coming before they happen and respond to it proactively rather than reactively. And I say that because COVID-19 has shown us that it's affected most people with underlying issues. And so I think aggressively recruiting, among other industries, healthcare individuals to continue to locate in all parts of the parish to ensure that people have, ample resources and have the decision to choose to who they want to go to is important. But as I have to be practical in understanding that COVID-19, as you said, is not going anywhere. We've seen a lot of conflicting stories on what's happening. This vaccine, I believe, is being misinterpreted as a cure. It's not a cure. So although we may have a vaccine soon, we're not going to have a cure to COVID-19. So we have to be prepared to respond to this and any natural disaster that may present itself in the future. And so I would not, as mayor president, enforce a mask mandate, because what we've seen now is that the federal government has gotten into trillions of dollars of debt, and what we rarely talk about is the fact that those dollars have to be paid back at some point. It's not that the government's just going to disappear that or get rid of it or take it off the books. It's going to be affecting the younger generations for time to come. And so I believe that what a mask mandate and a shutdown has done has prohibited businesses from prospering and really put a lot of people out of work and really created issues at home with domestic violence and such. And so I believe that it's important, as I said earlier, that we shift responsibilities to individuals and away from these businesses who aren't policing agencies. So I would not enforce a mask mandate. I would only encourage and really reach out to the people and ask they do their part as individuals and American citizens.
Thank you. Mr. Gayrard.
Yeah, the private sector is really stepping up and providing those health facilities, and I think as you get a better business development and economic development, that'll take care of itself. The government can plug holes temporarily. As to COVID-19, no, I would not enforce a mask mandate or a lockdown. I think history will show that is one of the worst things that government has ever done, is these lockdowns, without question. Mask mandate, you want to tell me how many studies say those are effective? I'll save you the trouble. It's 0. Lockdowns. Let's talk about the World Health Organization and the Barrington Group, which is a group of doctors, a couple of thousand from Harvard and Oxford and Stanford. And they all say, including the World Health Organization, that lockdowns were a mistake, that they caused far, far more harm than they did good. So Sweden, as a country, never locked down. They didn't have people dying in the streets. 9 states in this country never locked down. They did not have people dying in the streets. It has caused so much more harm in emotional distress, in suicides, and people unable to get the health care they need for other ailments. It's all about perspective. If you're under 70, it's 99.7% chance that you will not have a serious or deadly outcome from COVID. If you go down to 20, it's 99.9997% chance that you won't have a serious or deadly outcome from COVID. It's about perspective. 600,000 people a year die from cancer. 600,000 people die from heart disease. We don't put that on the front page every day, or else government would want to shut down Cokes and pizzas and things to stop heart disease. So to me, it's about risk and benefit. and see what we can look at and how we can just protect the vulnerable, the elderly, and the immune deficient, and then let the rest of us live our lives as free American citizens.
Representative Marcel.
Thank you. First of all, I must be living in a different city. I don't remember a total lockdown of the city. I've been able to move and go wherever I chose to move and go. I believe that we had a mask mandate in public places, which I supported. I supported it because it was a global pandemic, and many of us did not know what was going to happen with it, and we wanted to protect, for me, the most vulnerable population, which is our seniors, and the people with the underlying issues, which we have a lot of in the state of Louisiana. And so for me, I believe that we did what we thought was best with a mask mandate. And I think people danced around it and really didn't answer it. But the mask mandate, I support it. And so I'll stand here tonight and say I supported that, but I don't remember a shutdown in Baton Rouge. So that's how I feel about it. And then COVID-19, I certainly partnered with CARE South to do testing sites all over the city, which we did, and also gave out supplies. That was the PPE supplies, the masks, and the COVID supplies. I did that from one end of this parish to the other end of this parish because people were in need, and we did drive-throughs and gave them the food and the supplies that they need to help them to get through the pandemic. And that's what I did in the pandemic, and that's what I support.
Thank you. Just to address, and I'll get to you in 1 second, Mayor President Broome, just to address Mr. Gayrard in the effort of trying to keep the correct and accurate information available. You mentioned Sweden in talking about a lockdown. Sweden also had one of the highest coronavirus positive cases, and according to Time Magazine, 8 hours ago, Sweden is now considering a lockdown. So
I question your facts. Excuse me, but
I'm just going by what is being
why would they lock
reported.
down now when they haven't up to this point? When the whole World Health Organization is saying no lockdowns.
Well,
when the World Health Organization says that it has caused poverty to double in the last 6 months, double because of lockdowns.
Well, the
I'm just
reason
saying,
being,
I think your facts are incorrect.
we can agree and disagree on opinions, but according to the facts, according from Sweden, the actual country that
Where are
mentioned,
you getting your information?
Time, the magazine
Time Magazine is a very liberal organization. I don't trust a thing they say. Excuse me.
Again, we can agree and disagree on opinions.
Look at
but
the
if we're gonna
coverage
talk-
of Time. Look at Time's coverage of
Time
COVID.
is referring and actually speaking to
Okay,
the Prime Minister of Sweden.
Am I
where
debating you or
Sweden
these people
is-
here?
Excuse me, Mr. Gayrard. Sweden is considering a lockdown because of the extreme rate of their positivity cases, and they are now admitting that herd immunity, which now we are trying to implement here subconsciously, that it did not work because they had one of the highest positivity rates throughout the globe. So I'm just saying that for the basis of correcting information.
Your bias is coming loud and clear through,
I'm
by the
not
way.
biased. I'm just
You're
I am
absolutely
just
biased.
in the
Absolutely
effort,
you are.
in the effort of trying to make sure that accurate information gets out,
Okay.
because we do want an informed citizenry. We
Okay, now
are just
I feel
trying
like President
to
Trump
correct.
for some reason here,
We-
but I think what you're saying is wrong. Sweden is not going to go
Mr.
to a
Gayrard,
lockdown.
you can think whatever you want to. We're going to continue on and move
well, that's
forward. I
fine,
just
'cause
wanted
we'll
to
just have to
address the
agree
issue
to
so that
disagree.
people will not, they will have the information that is available
Okay, we
to
can
them
all
that
go
is
look it up
accurate.
ourselves.
Thank
and
you.
Don't listen to you
Thank
or
you.
me. How about that? That's good.
Again, thank you. Mayor President Broome.
Like to make a comment. We can call it a rebuttal. We can call it whatever you want to do, call it at this point. But I feel compelled to say something here, and that is that I implemented a mask mandate for the city and parish. There were some of our communities within the parish who did not align with the mask mandate, but certainly as the leader of the city, we have a mask mandate before we even had a statewide mask mandate. As mayor president, I implemented a mask mandate. I have no regrets. I do believe that masks are part of the mitigation process. I have mine right here, and I will be putting it on as soon as I finish with this conversation tonight. So yes, I support a mask mandate. I think you can certainly balance COVID-19 well-being of our citizens with our economy, and we have been very successful in our trajectory of addressing COVID-19 because we took charge, and I rely on the medical professionals and data to help with that. Thank you.
Thank you. This question is from the live stream audience, and it's really simple. Who is funding your campaign? Mr. Piazza, we'll begin with you.
Majority of it myself.
Thank you. Mr. Gayrod?
I have had 2 contributions, is total under 1,000. I am self-funding my own campaign. I don't want to be bought or owned by anybody.
Representative Marcel?
Mostly small citizens, attorneys, and myself.
Mayor President?
I have a number of supporters from $5 contributions on up to the max, representing the fabric of this community, not one entity.
Thank you. In keeping with the last segment with live stream questions, we have a live stream question that has come in. Name an African-American civil rights leader that you admire, and you cannot use Martin Luther King Jr. Why? And that is Mr. Gayrard.
I would say Malcolm X is a person that I admire because of his outspokenness, even though I disagree with him on a lot of the way that he went about to achieve what he wanted to achieve. He and Dr. King were on separate pages. But I admire somebody who stands up for what they believe. I think there was 2 tracks that we followed, and I think I'd have preferred the Dr. King track, obviously, because I think it's more of a peaceful, nonviolent tendencies. But I admire anybody who sees wrongness and improperness in a society, and they seek to address it.
Thank you. Representative Marcel?
Oh, this is an easy one for me. Harriet Tubman. And Harriet Tubman, not only did she free the slaves, but she went back and forth trying to uplift her people out of a terrible situation of slavery. And I admire her courageousness, I admire her leadership, and I try to model what she has done with the people that I serve.
Thank you. Mayor President?
You said the civil rights era, so I'm going to stick with a certain era of society because there are so many African Americans that have contributed to this country. But I am going to say right now Fannie Lou Hamer because she certainly was on the forefront. She was one of the individuals who definitely represented the labor movement as well as the working people, but she certainly, her mantra of that she was tired of being sick and tired is one that permeates throughout history today. So I'll say Fannie Lou Hamer.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you said during the civil rights era. So let me just say that we had one of those right here in the city of Baton Rouge, in the person of Mount Zion's pastor. And so I would like to say that I admired him a lot. And I think that he did a lot for Baton Rouge. We talk about the bus boycott in Birmingham, but actually it was started right here by T.J. Jemison and others, including the pastor of this great church. Your late father was a great leader during the civil rights era, so we're actually sitting in a facility where one of those civil rights leaders, along with Reverend T.J. Jemison, was certainly people that I look up to.
Thank you. Mr. Piazza.
Someone that I believe is inspiring to me, rather, for their actions during this time would be Rosa Parks. I believe that her resiliency and persistence in not allowing the folks to control her and is admirable, because I believe that's something that we should all inspire to do, not to be controlled by others. So I would have to say, outside of the great Martin Luther King, that's who comes to mind at first for me.
Thank you. We're now at the part of our program where each candidate will give a 90-second closing statement. We will begin with Mr. Gayrard.
Once there was a man who found a secret etched in stone about a person's path to heaven and 3 things that must be shown. Kindness first, as you'd be treated, do you treat your fellow man? Do you wear a smile all the while and lead with an outstretched hand? The second step to paradise is the spirit that you share. Belief in a force above you, a greater good for which you care. Speaking positively, celebrating joie de vivre. Enthusiast may you be cast, a spirit of let it be. The third rung of this upward call, wisdom seek and shine. Knowledge with perspective, torrid textures taught by time. Wisdom is experienced with love viewed from the skies. The key is 3 for eternity. Be spirited, kind, and wise. I want to move mountains. I want to touch hearts, minds, and souls. May you dare to be wise. May you always live bold. Not only for individuals, but Baton Rouge needs wisdom and boldness. And I think that E. Eric Gayrard, under the Fuse the Rouge campaign, fusetherouge.org, I think I have the leadership and the guidance and the out-of-the-box thinking that can bring us to the next level. Baton Rouge right now is mired in the muck of mediocrity, but we can take it to the next level. We can do it under my leadership and under an outward-looking program. So, folks, I know that we have a lot of problems in Baton Rouge, and Baton Rouge really needs to be cleaned up. But this broom does not sweep.
Okay. Representative Marcel?
First of all, let me thank you all for hosting this event. I know that I'm a leader. I know that I've shown that leadership during the Alton Sterling killing, when I led my community during that tumultuous time. Not only that, but I led my community on the Metro Council when it wasn't popular for body cameras. When no one would stand with me, I stood alone. Leaders have to be bold, they have to be courageous, and then they have to have the ability to move forward, even when standing alone. You can't stand on the sideline and wait for someone to tell you what to do. You have to be bold in your leadership. And I believe that I've shown that time and time again to this community, to this parish, and certainly to the state. I am C. Denise Marcel, asking for your vote, your support, and more importantly, I need your prayers. I'm number 90 on the ballot. I'm a leader that's going to make Baton Rouge better.
Thank you. Mayor President?
Once again, I'm delighted that we had the opportunity to share our vision, but more importantly, I'm glad that I could share our achievements from the past 4 years. Move EBR, economic development for communities of disinvestment, equity and inclusion initiatives, and the list goes on and on. Transformative leadership in some very trying times. Transparent leadership, where people can see where their taxpayer dollars are being spent, with initiatives like our open checkbook. But more importantly, I would say this. During the past 4 years, you have seen me front and center on every issue that concerns this community. You've seen me at meetings, you've seen me in your neighborhoods, you've seen me in your churches, and you've worked with me in my office. I have been leading the way for the past 4 years as your mayor president. You know what we've accomplished. You know the vision that I have for peace, prosperity, and progress. I just wish everybody here would have joined me over the past 4 years for the evolvement of that vision. Let's move 4 years forward together, Baton Rouge. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you. Mr. Piazza.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure again to be here, and I appreciate everyone's time that has tuned in from home. I do want to say I'm proud to be the only Republican candidate endorsed by the Republican Party of East Baton Rouge Parish, and I say that because my fellow Republican candidates are not present tonight, and I think that speaks volume to their unwillingness and lack of respect for the entire community, unwillingness to work with the entire community. And I believe that's why the Republican Party endorsed me, because they realize that it's time for a new generation of leadership. And so I implore all of you at home and here tonight to take a look at everyone that is running for office and see who you believe is best fit to manage our budget, to best provide quality services, to be efficient in what we do, and to be transparent in all that we have. And I believe that we need bold, conservative management to really progress us forward. I believe that our students and our youth here need school choice and opportunity to thrive. I believe that the entire parish needs to come together, and we must work together to ensure that no one is left behind anywhere in this parish. But I'm excited to be a part of this process. I look forward to what the days to come. We are getting very close, and I ask that you consider voting Jordan Piazza on early voting on November 3rd. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you. Again, we would like to thank all of our candidates for participating in tonight's event. We thank Mr. E. Eric Gayrard, State Representative C. Denise Marcel, Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome, and of course, Mr. Jordan Piazza. We extended our invitation to all of the candidates in the election, and we still, if time permits, will provide them with a forum if needed. Again, we thank you all for tuning in at home on behalf of Prophetic Voices, also on behalf of Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church, Mad Game Entertainment, Terrence Turner. It's been a delight and a pleasure to serve as one of your moderators tonight. I am Tony King, and
I am Kenyatta M. Collins.
don't forget, early voting has started and will continue until October 27th, as well as Election Day on November 3rd. We ask that you please visit all of the candidates' websites and forums and familiarize yourself with everything that's on the ballot, as well as all of their platforms. Again, we thank you all for participating tonight, and we look forward to seeing and hearing from you all in the future. Thank you all.